Well, hello, creatives, community, and kind folks. Welcome to RPG with DBJ. I am your host, DBJ, and welcome to the channel where this section of the interwebs we get to talk about hard science fiction tabletop role playing games. Boy, that's a bit of a niche, but eh, it's our niche. So we like to talk about that here on this edge of the interwebs. And today I don't have anything specifically. I just wanted to talk openly about game design and production and a thing for the future. And um, I've been I have lots of things going on in my head and projects going on, and I don't really like to talk about them too much because the minute I leave them out into the blogosphere and the and such, then I have to commit to them. And sometimes that's a good thing because you get outside pressure, but a good thing. So I have some valuable time off next week, and I will be putting something out for the community for you guys to take a look at. So, yeah, I'm surprised. Oh, thanks, Drew. Thank you so much. Um, so let's see if I can. I'm going to adjust my camera very slightly here down. So, uh, thank you there. I like these you only know if you know t-shirts. So it is very much a WandaVision television show shirt. Specifically saying, oh, can you see it? It says home. Let's take this down. Let's get rid of this little thing here. All right. So it says home is where you make it in Westview, right? And it's an image that is very difficult to if you see it on first view, you're just like, oh, what kind of 1950s bullshit is that? American bullshit? But that's exactly what it is. So thank you very much, Drew. Very, very perceptive. I really appreciate that. So having something I once called this like world builders syndrome, where we start to get into world building and game design and these high concept ideas about game design and world building, and mind you, the world building isn't relegated to gaming. I just mean whether you want to be a novelist or screenwriter and all of these and creative endeavors outside of that, and they all happen to revolve around the same things, very very much artistry and that creative spark in our head that wants us to um create some kind of permanency in the worlds that we have in our skull box. And and it's very interesting the directions we go. And going very far away against rolling a d20 and using other randomizers or not having randomizers and things like that. And so I got to listen to a a game designer that I'm a big fan of, not necessarily because I like what he's doing, which I do, but the idea of speaking out loud about the sausages made. So I thought I would share some of those concepts with you guys, so that you have the ability to go down the pathways you prefer. So there's a YouTube channel. I didn't think I was going to share this out, but I guess I will. So there's a YouTube channel known as Gilla RPG. Don't exactly know why it's called Gilla, but it is. And Gilla RPG is just this gentleman that just talks openly about game design and things like that, and has put out which I have an itch.io account, and I'm probably going to end up posting it up on itch. And let's see if I can get to this individual's homepage. There we go. We're going to put this here. Small channel, about basically the same size as my channel, and this individual is openly talking about different types of game design and talks with other individuals in his circle about game design and mechanics and things of that nature. I'll just put the link to the put that in the chat too. And if you're someone who just wants to listen in, and like I said before, you don't necessarily have to like the direction of the game design, but I appreciate the idea of taking it apart. So an example would be that this individual is talking about game design using playing cards, using that as a mechanic. He has another game that he put out just using plain old D6s, and we've seen the partial success um, thing in the indie game world. I always call it the, I'm dumb. I call it the yes, no, if and or buts concept. Like, well, you succeeded with a consequence or failed, but failed forward and stuff. We've seen that plenty of times, and of course, he has a game out like that. These are all for free, by the way. I went down a rabbit hole of looking for OGL SRDs. Yesterday, I got to listen to uh, stochastic agency chastic. Yeah, I definitely agree. I love the thought process, even, and my feeling is like I love the thought processes even if I don't, despite whether I like or don't like where they're going. I like the thought process because um it gives me an opportunity, and I think for you guys too, as writers and game designers and world builders and such, that um it's how do I explain it? Um, there's a foundational part of the design process, and it it allows us to go, do we really, what is our end goal? And do we really need to go down the exact same paths we've been doing so much so when we were first introduced into the gaming culture? We all know that um, Yep. That's exactly him. Spencer Campbell. Yep. Yeah, that is the channel from Spencer Campbell. Had listened to the Nova character uh things on that other channel you linked last week. Yes. And for example, he created, so he has an OGL SRD. And for those, real quick, OGL, Open Gaming License, which means you can use it as long as you give proper attribution where you got it from, you can use it freely. And an SRD is the system reference document. And that's a document that you can basically, for lack of a better descriptor, you can copy and paste and then alter it as you need for your own gaming purposes. So having both an OGL, a gaming license that allows you to use it with basically a very simple attribution, basically saying where you got it from and allow pointing people back to the originator, and then the SRD are all the rules that you can then go, oh, okay, this is how the rules. Maybe I want to remix them and whatnot. And that system reference document combined with the OGL is a great way to start if you want to make a game. And he's got quite a number of those games. But that wasn't the thing that got me into listening to him. What got me listening in was was having a conversation out loud, talking out loud, and was like, why do we have hit points? Like, do we really need hit points? And why do we bother having randomization? Like, and it made me really not think about it, but I was just like, well, why do we have it? And he was going down a path of, well, if we know what the outcome is, then, and we don't need a randomizer, then maybe the choice in success or failure, or pushing forward versus falling back, might lay in a resource that you expend rather than rolling random dice to see whether you randomly do something or not, especially when you have characters when you have power fantasy characters that are larger than life and things like that. And I really appreciate that. And on his itch page, he's got a number of OGL SRDs that are just out there for free, and they're a bit incomplete on purpose, and I like that idea. And I thought I would share not necessarily his stuff, which I will and I have, but the idea of sometimes we go through these spirals of creation. So one of the spirals of creation is the randomizer itself. And I love when a game is able to blend the meta randomizer or aspects of what we're using in the game with the world building itself. So what I mean by that is um not just rolling a d20, but is that die in the game world itself? I have a game, a diceless role playing game called Everway. I wonder if I can find, yeah, Everway RPG. And it's a diceless role playing game, and Everway. I've got the funny thing is I've got the original box set. I found in a half price bookstore another version of the game which I picked up because I think it's a brilliant game. One of these days I may like give it away or do a giveaway or something of that nature. And share this. They got prices here. Noble Knight has it for $135. Game Nerds 160. Wow, the whole box set. Man, that's rare. $150 on eBay. Man, I think I picked it up for like $10 or something. Second version. Anyway, it's a diceless role playing game, and it was well ahead of its time. I believe it was Jonathan Tweet. Let's go to, let's see. Wikipedia has it 1995. Yeah, Jonathan Tweet marketed as a visionary role playing game, and it uses a tarot card deck or it's a modified tarot card deck, very heavily modified tarot card deck. It only has the major arcana in it, essentially. Although there is the 25th anniversary of the game is in a standard role playing book format. And the book itself is the randomizer. So when you flip the pages of the book, you can flip to a random page, and that page has like in the margins, it has like the tarot card and whether it's reverse facing, and then there's a mechanism to use like D6s. Anyway, so they did elaborate more to have a little bit more of a randomization. Although I really appreciate the book itself as you flip the pages to actually be a randomizer. But it just made me think about it. Like this is a cool thing to use like tarot cards. Yeah. Hey, Asia says, "Oh yeah, everywhere pictorial, oracular interpretation. That wow, what a great phenom. I like your wording. I thank you for bringing your brilliance here as well. Hey, Drew, I think we have ourselves another fan here, a co-host that's going to outsmart us. I really appreciate that. Yep, got the OG box myself and full set of cards. Yeah. I've right now currently sitting. I have a triple set of cards, two from the original, and then the new versions that were released with more additional artwork and things like that. But anyway, it's randomization with tarot cards and playing cards, and I wonder. Yeah, sadly not all the cards. Maybe I'll get you your full set. Maybe that's what I'll do. In the back of my head. All right. But I wonder why in our role playing community we haven't really embraced like playing cards, tarot cards, picture wise cards as a randomizer when so many of us are like storytellers and using them, and there's so many different ways we can use those cards, or at least a set of cards to randomize the way we want to. And one of the great things about using, say, playing cards or tarot deck cards for randomization is, unlike a rolling dice, you can pick and choose the cards you want to use. So an example is and I wish I could remember who did this. Someone decided to make random use Magic the Gathering cards, MTG cards, and create randomized decks not to play the game, but to come up with like random encounter tables or random success um versions. Like you would pull a card and that card would represent a way to navigate through the situation. And I think that's really interesting to have a way of like, for example, if you pull a tower card, maybe the players must climb to the highest point in order to succeed in an endeavor or to get past an obstacle or to solve a situation. Maybe that card pulled is part of an encounter. Maybe they go through the dark woods and they hack and slash their way through the overgrowth, and they see a temple with this massive tower, but for some reason the players couldn't see it from a high bluff. So maybe there's like arcane energies hiding it from sight until they were able to make their way through or to it. But if they leave the region, they can never turn back and see the all of a sudden it's just overgrown again and they don't see the tower or something like that. I mean, there's so many ways to do it. I mean, pulling random cards for personality traits for NPCs, pulling random cards that maybe the cards are handed out like bennies, where a player says, "Oh, I've got that each player gets 3 cards if they succeed in a event or something." Or it's like some kind of maybe you have a boon bane system where the game master or whoever draws a card that works against the players, whereas the players may hold on to cards and use them as well, I've got a tower card. I'm going to use my tower card to find that means I create within the fiction a high point that my archer character will climb up to snipe at the enemies or something. And as the game master, I didn't say there was a high point, but the card may insert that particular thing into the narrative. So yeah, cards can be very interesting. I wish the standardized playing card deck had a little bit more intricacy to it. You can actually order a custom set of playing cards, but I think they have I think in our heads, we don't look at playing cards in the same manner as we look at tarot cards, but playing cards actually work really well in this regard too. Yeah, Stochastic says, depending on the cards used, it's that interpretation. Oops, it's that interpretation that can get in the way for some. I think sometimes the interpretation part of it, uh, we can get stuck in our own head because we get into these creative loops where our first instinct we work against our first instinct because it's an unfinished idea and we want to perfect the idea that is coming out, whereas this is like seat of the pants creativity. We need to just go with our first instinct and just move on. Two, 3 sentences, and then boom, go to the next thing, as opposed to going, I wonder what this card means, and stopping for 45 minutes to figure out what the interpretation is. It's just when the few but intense games I played with Everway, you just have to keep moving. Just keep it moving. Keep it moving. I pull a lion card. I use it for leadership or to impress somebody. Oh, they think you're royalty. Just keep moving. Throw it back in the deck, shuffle, keep going. And so I think interpretation is a limitation of ourselves, despite the fact that that limitation is actually a good thing because we're really creative people in our tabletop role playing community. But yeah, the hard part is just not letting perfect get in the way of just being good enough. Drew says, I have used Magic the Gathering cards as well as L5R card. I forgot about those to make adventures. Instead of pulling cards myself, I simply opened a booster and used all the cards in it. Yeah, there's some amazing inspirational things we have in our community that isn't really uh, I don't know how do you explain it. Stop screen sharing. There we go. That isn't really embraced, and I'm really surprised. Yeah, perfection is the killer of creativity. Yeah, and I'm a victim of that too. And I had to smack myself in the back of my own head and be like, lick my fingers, do a little Benny Hill, and like, wake up, DBJ. Like, better to be just good enough than to be perfect. So look for this next week. Yeah. Some card systems might involve a bit of learning for associations, and while I do agree with you that like myself, I'm just an armchair creator, right? I'm not a I am uh interested in many things, but a master of none. And so I am not a professional tarot card reader. That being said, I do understand that there are books related to tarot cards and what their meanings are, but I would dare say that those of us in the gaming community, we don't really need that. And I know that seems blasphemous for something that's been around for so long and it has intricate um understandings and meanings and things. Yeah, but honestly, we don't really need that. We can look at a card and then interpret it for our own game and go, "Oh, eight of swords. That's awesome. There's eight guardians or whatever." You know what I mean? Like we don't need to look in a book and go, "Well, it actually means, alignment with the stars and an interpersonal part of your soul and stuff." That's It's good to learn that. I'm not saying that, but I think sometimes we get in our own way about that. So yeah. Yeah, agencies, yes, as you're saying, they can act as prompts. Yep. And I think sometimes we are put off by not jumping in right away. And I'm a proponent of like, sometimes you have to be the first penguin into into the waters and to get other people to jump in. So yeah. Says you should check out Reckless Deck. Story engine decks are good as well. I do have maybe I should. You know what? Maybe I will do. I have a Oracle deck, so let me see if I can show off this without dumping shit all over the place. Let's take the cards out so I can show the box. Um, is it up? Ooh, had a 50% chance of showing this. Um, Oracle character generator. This is from what's the company? Nord Games, and trying to get the bottom of the box out. Wow, I wasn't even expected to do this, but seat of the pants live broadcasting. Boy, that sounded like a fart. Okay, so this is the Oracle character generator, and then I have another one for the story generator, and I think they just did a Kickstarter or backer kit for, I don't know which one it is, for monster generators, Oracle. And then this is the oh, 50% chance loss. This is the back of the box, and it just shows you what the cards look like. And then, okay, let's see here. And all right, so I'm gonna hold this up. I know you can't. If you're listening, you can't see it. There are 5 decks of cards. There's a little empty spot here. If you yeah, I saw that stoic here. Stochiastic, chiastic, shiastic. Ah, I don't know which way. I'm going to call you agency or SA. So 5 decks of cards, empty place to put like dice or a card box. But if I only opened one of these, if you take a look at the cards, they come in these. Man, I have to turn one of my lights down. Okay, let's see. They're a little bit better. So you can't see the words here for my camera because it's trying to zero in on my face and the cards. So I gotta kind of keep them close to myself. So anyway, they come in these colored um versions, and each deck you match up the colors with the character that you want to create. And this one, oh, stochastic. Okay. Oh, I was like, wait a minute, which I put the incorrect emphasis on the improper syllable. um, but anyway, so each deck has its own theme to it. So, for example, um, this unopened deck is for travelers. What does it say? Townsfolk and travelers, intrigue. And then there's another deck that says this one is for NPCs, nobles and clergy. Man, it's really difficult to get there. Come on, camera. Come on. So there's nobles and clergy. There's another deck of merchants and artisans, and a deck of those. And then lastly, we have a deck of inspiration deck of heroes and champions. And these are like NPCs. And then the deck that's opened up, I have are villains and scoundrels. Villains and scoundrels. And then with yeah, 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 Drew. Hell yeah. So, um, but I love inspirational prompts. And the idea of having inspirational prompts, whether they are a deck of cards or dice, I love dice that don't have numbers on them, but they have like symbols or features or landmarks or Rory story cubes. I think I have nearly every Rory story cube set. I think they number in the 40s or 50s of cubes, and then there's some knockoff. Maybe knockoff isn't the correct terminology, but I have some knockoff Rory story cubes. But I love random tables and things like that to just get our brains moving. And this channel's kind of dedicated to being inspired by sometimes pop culture, sometimes politics, news stories, all those kind of things. So yeah, those who know that inspiration takes us many places. And when it comes to game design, even the randomizer itself, I love to be inspired by the randomizer. So, for example, um, playing cards. There are what the game that I know of that uses playing cards that are an in-world feature is Deadlands. Deadlands is basically like a eldritch horror, undead, gunslinging Western RPG, and yeah, yeah. Sarcastic's like, yeah, Rory's are awesome. I wish Rory, and I understand that they are not they're not related at all to tabletop role playing, but I wish I was able to sit down at a gaming convention. I think it was Origins here in Columbus, Ohio, and Rory the people behind the Rory Story cubes made a role playing game based on their cubes, and I didn't have the ability to sit down and work with it. It came with like cards, and you put the dice into like a mechanism. It was a little fiddly, but it was pretty interesting. Like, oh, I wonder if you could make a character with just grabbing a couple of random dice and putting them down. My answer to that would be yes. Um, and so yes, and circling back a little bit to Gilla RPG and I'm about to say, is it Joseph Campbell? Spencer Campbell. I was like Joseph Campbell. Uh, it's called Untold. Wow, somebody who knows these things. I'm so glad you're here. Thank you very much for that. Yes, Untold, and I believe it's not technically a role playing game. It's a story generation game, very close to a like a microscope or a solo journaling game or a collaborative one's called Microscope. There's another collaborative storytelling game that I can't think of off the top of my head. Yeah, he is. Yes, Joseph Campbell's the Hero of the Thousand Faces guy. Yes, I was like, why do I know that name? I don't know that person. Yeah, Drew says for my system, I use simple fudge dice, but not in the way fudge or fate uses them, but more directly as an indicator how things are going. For those who don't know, if you've ever heard of fate dice or fudge dice, they are um, there's an equal opportunity on each die to get a positive, a negative, or a neutral result. Essentially, it's a D6, and they have two pluses, two minus faces, and then two blank faces. And you roll the dice, and when you roll multiple dice, you can get multiples of positives and negatives. And so it that randomizer keeps the boundary of pluses and minuses within a bounded region, and it's I think the maximum is like +4 -4. Yeah. Stochastic says it's fairly structured, but yes, it's got character generation and story development. Um and it does remind me, now mind you, I got a chance to like look over people's shoulder, and I had to keep on moving. I was with other people, I had to keep on moving. But yes, I love stuff like that. And if I can go back to Spencer Campbell for just 2 seconds, he has some free games out there. A very silly one called Caltrop Core, which just uses D4s, and the D4 basically, a 1 and a 4 is a maximum success or failure. A failure on a 1, success on a 4, and then the number 2 and 3 is failing forward or succeeding with a cost. And basically it's just caltrop core. You just roll d4s, and it's a dice pull mechanic. I think the way it's he has the SRD, I don't think you roll more than say 3 d4s. But yeah, stay on target. Stay on target. I get very squirrely. I'm easily distracted. So yes, but my point about the randomizer, and this is all connected, so don't worry about that. The reason for the randomizers and their simplicity, I what I like is, what are we trying to say? Like, where are we going with our creation, our story? And sometimes the randomizer we even use to tell it is like unnecessary. Like, do we really need a D20 if all we're looking for are four states of success or failure? Do we want, total failure, failing forward, success with a cost, success? If that's all we need, then maybe D4s and caltrops are all we need to tell the game. Or I've even, when I was listening to his podcast broadcast about, do we really need hit points in the game? And and this is a cyclical thing when it comes to fantasy D20 games, where hit points don't really represent what we're really thinking they do. And many games have like wound systems, or um, the it's not wound, but stacked conditional systems, meaning like you are now confused, or you're bruised, or you're bleeding, or something like that. um you know Essentially, like, I even thought of having, could you make a deck of cards, could you make a deck of cards your character, right? Like, a deck of 52 playing cards could be that's how many hits you have and hit points you have, and your success and your failure and your special abilities, all wrapped into one thing. Wound, yep. Stochastic says like wound levels, like World of Darkness. And by the way, just as a side note, I tend to not I'm far more concerned with what you have to say than how you say it. So I get, like, if you're on your phones, and we have, like, what is it? Spell check will happen in there. So don't worry, I won't embarrass you about that. I prefer to hear your conversation. So yeah. Torchbearer has an interesting health system as well. I don't earn excuse me. I don't own Torchbearer, and at the time I wish I had enough money to have purchased it when it like first came out, and then it fell out of my periphery. I don't know much about it, but I remember being impressed by how it worked. I In the Dune RPG, reminds me a bit of Torchbearer, if I'm not mistaken, that characters it's not just about your skills like running, jumping, convincing, fixing, building, crafting. It's also about your motivations. Why are you doing a thing? How are you doing a thing? And the Dune RPG kind of reminds me about that. Like your characters are better at doing a thing if they fall into their most um their dedications to a goal. So maybe you are motivated by duty or faith or chance or greed or jealousy or love or things like that. And the higher your point in it, the more dice you get the roll to achieve a thing, which means that when you act in towards or against your own personal motivations, and then that means that whenever you act, other people might be able to react off of your actions. Yeah. Yes, true motivation, beliefs, natures, and such. Now mind you, I don't remember the maybe I could find the character sheet and just put it up here. Drew says, now thinking of it, you could do your arts and science system as cards, and baggage is then you have to put the cards face down and away. Thank you very much for bringing that up because I love. I'm not a pass fail person. I love telling more of an intricate story, and I think the hive mind at the table, physically and virtually, is smarter than I am. So coming up with interesting failing forward states to me has always been natural. For example, whenever I've run Dungeons and Dragons, D20 style fantasy games, I've always included things like let's take your proverbial dragon, and the players are or let's go even lesser than let's go with wyverns. I love wyverns or wyverns. I like the word wyvern. Um, but anyway, flying drake like monsters with a poison tail or something, and I've played with players who are just like, I want to put a spear through the wing and pin it to a wall, or I want to chop off his poison stinger, or I want to grapple it around the neck, even if it flies away, or grab onto one of its legs, or so, a rope around one of its legs. And all of that I'm describing does not exist in the rules as written. And as a matter of fact, I don't believe it's ever been written in the rules as written. But we, as my old gaming group, we would embrace that. Great. Okay, if you roll 10 above the number you need or 5 above the number you need, you succeed in doing the thing. Or you know what? You fail in the roll, but it was close enough. So the the thing happens, but not in the way you intended, and blah 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 blah. Right? Like we've had situations where someone would roll. I need to roll a 16 or higher. Okay, I roll. Okay, plus 3, I get a 21. Oh, that's isn't that 5 above? Yeah, yeah. The math. Silly math in our heads. We're like counting on our fingers, like, oh yeah, yeah. Okay, so the rope latches around the wyvern's clawed foot, taloned foot, and it wraps around it. What do you want to do? Well, I want to hold on and try to hold it down to the ground. And it's like, well, it can fly and pick you up. I mean, if you're going to use one as a mount, it could easily lift you up. And you're like, oh, I didn't think about that. All right, everybody else grab the rope, and pull it down and tie it to a tree branch or something. And I love that kind of interaction, even if the rules don't state it. So I used to play games like that. Now, of course, we have games that embrace the failing forward, success with a cost, the yes, no, if and or but kind of thing, and I love that. But here's the counter to that: not everybody likes that, and also it can be too much of a narrative load on the brain if every single time you roll the dice all the time you have to come up with something interesting as a side effect, right? Like if it happens 100% of the time, it gets old real quick. So, and I've thought about this quite a bit. I now currently use a 2D12 system, a light die and a dark die, and The light die is on the player side, the dark die is basically on the GM side to make bad things happen. And if you use the light die, you can just decide that there are no side effects, right? There's just you succeed or you fail. And then the dark die is the complicated one. So you have a you start out with a 50-50 chance of not having to use the complication. Anyway, you get the point. Some people, like, what is it, Dagger Heart, that's created by Critical Role, were not complaining but taken aback by the fact that when it uses a 2d12 system, a hope and fear dice, basically light and dark, a hope and fear, well, you know what I mean, two different colors, and that rolling hope and fear constantly would have this narrative load on our brains that we go, like, we start rolling our eyes like, really? Look, all I wanted to do is ask the shopkeeper, could they, you know, maybe make it a little bit cheaper. And now I got to come up with all these extra things and roll it into the game and such. So while I love that kind of storytelling, it can be a little bit daunting. Um, but there's something else too that I think we overlook when it comes to game design. And I mentioned this before, is semantics. So sometimes the thing we name a thing has an impact on how that thing is used. So hit points is, you could rename, and I actually did this experiment and it didn't work out very well. My players were just like, "This game is stupid," and I was like, "It's the exact same game." But if you rename like hit point something else, uh, like Drew mentioned, friction. I love that. I love that idea. Friction, stress, wounds, exhaustion, fatigue, um, drive, strive, stubbornness, motivation. There's so many other. As a thesaurician, I love to look up other words that have similar parallel meanings. And sometimes just coming up with the names we name a thing for our world design and game design as well really lets us know how that thing should be used or not used. And yeah, Anon says establish stakes before the roll, not after. Better yet, don't even roll unless there are stakes. Yeah, exactly. Not only that, this is weird to say. This is an intricate part in game design too. Um, do you want to have a system that flows from one, two, three, four, that flows down river, or do you want an interrupt system? So some people don't like the cipher system, even though it is a D20 system. And the cipher system, instead of adding numbers to your die roll, it establishes the stakes first, like Anon just mentioned, before rolling the dice. So instead of the numbers adding or subtracting to the die, it actually adds or subtracts from the difficulty first, then the dice are rolled. So all of the things come first. Also late due to mushroom barley misadventure. I am going to misinterpret that and make that seem a little darker than it should be. um, but no, honestly, the idea of do you want modifiers and all of that added in first? Because to me, and I know this is just a small pet peeve of mine, I dislike having someone roll dice and then we have to add and subtract modifiers to the die roll after the dice are rolled, which slows down what the actual result is based on modifiers. I would rather have all that done up front and then you just roll a single die or dice pool or whatever and just go one, two, three, four, boom. Yep. Four successes. Great. Did it. Oh, that's don't make my soup awkward. Sorry. I just yeah. Stochastic's like, checked out Guilla RPGs. I'll have to pick up a couple of these. Yeah, for research. Yeah, yeah, just a little bit. Um, no, I really appreciate the Spencer Campbell for putting out a number of those. What one of them is called Caltrip Core, which is basically using D4s. He has another one that's that he's progressively designed both world and game design called Lumen. So Lumen has become Light, which has become Nova, which has become Luna, and it's a whole it's a Destiny Warframe RPG world that he is expanding, where you get to play different factions within that world. So imagine a power fantasy where you get to play as characters in designed like Warframe or Destiny, armored, but you still have clothes over your armor, and you got like big weapons and that kind of thing, jump jets and all that kind of stuff. uh, Semi magic, techno magical kind of stuff. Yeah, pretty cool. Uses D6s, but then he created another version that is diceless, and it uses a token system. So you have approaches, you pick numbers to appear in your approaches, and you spend tokens to basically every time you use a token, you gain a complete success. You don't roll the dice, you're just that good. But when you run out of tokens, that means you have to use the approach you're using isn't as effective as the other approaches. So now you have to use other mechanisms for success and then do things to regain those tokens. And regaining those tokens might mean choosing to lose to regain tokens to gain more successes, which puts failure in the player's hands, which I very strange to have a diceless system that does that, but I love it. There's another diceless system I've brought up before. It's called it's not TRPG. It's the TRPG. TRPG. Um, TRPG diceless system. Oh, who has this? No, 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 no. It's called TRPG. Oh, not Amber. Oh man, I can't find it. Okay. Anyway, the game uses a very simple guess a number system, and a character can be put on a 3x5 card. You could write a character on the back of your hand or the palm of your hand, and the individuals that created it as a game. They would drive to and from cons, and they were like, "How can we play a role playing game while we're driving in the car, where it's awkward to roll dice and write things down?" And so you you've heard the term pick a number, guess the number, pick a number between 1 and 10. And so it's like a 1 and you can pick a number between 1 and 10, 1 and 15, 1 and 20. And if your character is better at a thing, each plus of your capability lets you pick your number range widens based on the number you guess. So if your character has a 0 in strength, then if you pick, I guess number 5, then your number is number 5. If you have +1 in strength and you pick 5, you also spread from 5, so you pick 4, 5, and 6. If you have a +2 in strength and you pick the number 5, that means you pick 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. I know that sounds strange, but I like that. I like a diceless system like that. It's really cool. I wish I came up with it, and I don't want to steal it from the people who created it. But yeah. What else did Gillard come up with? Oh, the emergent game system, Emerge 8 game system. Matter of fact, I'll even put it up here. Emerge 8. 8 stats, SRD. There we go. Let's go to the front page and share this out. But yeah, the Emerge 8 system No, I need the window. There we go. And let's see, did it show up? Yes, it did. So this is the emergate or SRD, and this emergent, I suppose it's pronounced emergent, but it's emerge, and this E with the black bar over here is an 8. And let's see. Mm-mm-mm. It's the TTRPG you design as you play. And uh Gila RPG is also under the Titano Machi. Titanomachi is the war of the Titans and the Zeus and the Olympian gods, but I don't know how to pronounce it. Or rather, um, pronunciations are made up, so whatever. But anyway, let's get to the meat. Like this is just an example. Um, e- Emerge 8 is a D8 system, and of course that means that if it's an D8 system, it uses a D8 dice pool. There are 8 stats, and let's see if we can get the stats up here and shrink this down just very slightly so you can see them. And these are the stats for the game. And what kind of look at the stat descriptors, right? And of course the whole point is you yourself are going to redesign this. But this is just an example of like finding these SRDs and going, yeah, this really needs to be modified if I want to use it. And so like what is the stat known as bizarre? What does that even mean? Or like breath? I mean, sure, breath could mean like breath control, or is that like, breath of the wind or something? Form, is that body? I don't know. Go sounds like a dex Diamonism stat, maybe. Moxie sounds like a willpower or luck stat or force of personality stat. Don't know what put means. Put could be sounds like a crafting, like putting something somewhere or whatever, lifting maybe. I don't know. Turn, what does turn mean? What does work? Work is more crafting than maybe put, but maybe you want to have a blending. I don't know. And I love the idea of like, I don't know what this means, but I really could use it. And the idea behind this game is you have 8 stats and then you combine 2 stats to make something known as an ability, and then you combine 2 more and that becomes an ultimate, and then you combine 2 more and that becomes a power, and then you have difficulty and stuff. But anyway, long story short is it's got a very interesting create on the fly creation, and I like that. um it's basically an SRD that's like, hey, have you ever played when to jump into the game and not worry about what the rule, like you already know what the rules are, but the players are discovering what they can do and how they do it? Hey, why don't you just do that? And I was like, oh, okay. So um let's see if we can get all the way down here to some examples. Talks about combat is optional. I want to get to um mm, he's got a small health system and large health system in this game. um Physical, oh, here it is. Physical space. I've never seen this before, but I'm very impressed by it. So he was talking about theater of the mind and gridded space, and that you can take combat on an 8x8 grid. The game is called Emerge 8, right? Or Emerge 8 or Emergent. Um, and on an 8x8 grid, each character choice is represented by a chess piece. And so your character, based on the kind of class or whatever or archetype you pick, is a chess piece, and your character moves in that manner. And I was like, wow. And there's even a visual system of it. And I was like, that's kind of a cool idea. Now I don't know how many people. I don't tend towards gridded combat, but I like that. Um, Talks about attack ranges and things like that, and how interesting it would be. And admits, like, for example, right here, he says, disclaimer, I haven't tested this way of running combat, but I have high hopes for using a common household item to make combat games more accessible, which I always love the idea of using like very common things like playing cards. Tarot decks aren't they, they aren't common household items, but amongst TTRPG players, you can buy the most elaborate tarot card decks ever and have them around. I mean, they're very much like put them on your shelf kind of items, and I really like that idea. Heck, I even thought of like using Rubik's cubes, and D6s exist everywhere. That's why so many people put out die six systems, because you can steal die sixes from box games and things like that. Um, but yep. But these are a la carte mechanics. So what ends up happening is, where do I find it at? Yeah, it's the proportions. So he says the big decision, in my opinion, is what proportion will be emergent as players and GMs of your game play, and what proportion will be prescribed at what you explicitly design. With 8 skills, there are 28 possible combinations of 2. So you take 2 skills, put them together, and it becomes a bigger, better thing. And says if you wanted, you could write all 28 abilities, then you could write all 378 powers. And if my math is correct, you'll have a heck of a time writing 71,253 ultimates. Joking aside, how much you write is up to you. So it's eight skills put together, and then those 8 skills become abilities, and then you take 2 abilities and put them together and they become a power, and then you take 2 powers and put them together and it becomes an ultimate, like a self-filling um character advancement tree. Infinite Builder the RPG. Yeah, kind of like that. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. But using that as an example, shit. It's on the opposite side of me. It's not exactly mirrored. But using that as an example of a method of someone who put out an SRD, and then that SRD, let me see if I can find another SRD. Here we go. Caltrop Core. Let's see if I can share this out. Oh, that's Caltrop Core EX. Hmm. Didn't realize that. There it is. Uh, this is another one. Caltrop Core EX, which is like the there we go. An even air quotes deeper version of using D4s or caltrops for a game. Um, but yeah, really cool, very creative, and free to use. So many individuals now are putting out SRDs. I just heard that the latest SRD for Tales of the Valiant is out, and it's like 387 pages. As a contributing writer to Level Up Advanced 5th Edition, there is an SRD out for Level Up 5e. I mean, there's so many things. This is a 15-page document about using D4s. Crazy, but I love it. I like the idea of using this. Mm-mm-mm. Yeah, take what you like and explore other SRDs here to find the right system for your idea. Let's see if I click this. Where is it going to take me? Uh, there it is. This is free free and open resource. Fari community. Let me copy this. Boop, boop, boop. Sorry, I can't see you guys. You're all right. So, this is a where? Come on. Why is it not showing me? There we go. Um, 40 plus open licensed SRDs. And you could check many of these out for your own creation system. And my suggestion is, if as a game designer and a world builder, is to try to match the the feeling. I know this is very difficult to write this down, but try to match the feeling of the randomization and the game to the type of stories you're trying to tell, to the point of having the thing that exists outside the game in your world. So an example, with Everway uses a modified tarot deck card system. But in the world, there are oracles and storytellers and such that use that oracle tarot deck card to tell the future of the player characters in the world, if that makes sense. Oh, Cesar Kapakli, I think that's how his name is pronounced, is in here. I think it's a push SRD, I think he has. But anyway, oh, Karen's in here with Yokon. I can't remember his name. Shit. But anyway, these are a bunch of SRD. Here it is, push, the push system. And then you join Discord, submit your content to them. 40 plus. Let's see, browse all projects just to get you guys to get a visual of how many games there are out there that are free, open, um, generic, not so generic, version 1.0, 2.0s, etc. I mean, Fate is still out there. Trophy's pretty good. Trophy's very much horror, or Trophy Dark is very horror. Trophy Gold is more fantasy horror system, more survivable. Let's put it that way. Trophy Dark is the downfall of your insanity as you go into the dark woods as it consumes you. Trophy Gold is more about, of course, receiving gold to achieve safety for your community. A fantasy game. But there's a number of these. Blades in the Dark, of course, is in here. Lumen, as I talked about before, is in here. Power Fantasy, uh, like I said, Warframe, Destiny. I think there's a couple other games that are like it. Bunch of Fate toolkits. Detailed list of Fate stunts. Build a game system. Bags. That's a cool name. Bags. Featherweight tag system built for kids and newcomers. So actually didn't think I was going to go this far into it, but 4 points SRD, build an RPG focused on player agency, character, narrative customization, and such. So take a look at some of these to see if they fall into system reference threads of Lachesis, Lachesis, the fight card system. There's a bunch of these. I've taken a look at Just before. Loner. But anyway, um, guys, thank you very much for letting me share this with you. Letting me share all of these various indie press, small or not so small SRDs with you guys, and just to encourage you guys. Stochastic says, "Cool, thanks for the link. No problem." I want to write 27 pages about using D12s, the dirty dozen. Yeah. Yeah, you're making fun of me. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah. Yeah. Brain soup issues. Yes, maybe wake up at 6:47. Stochastic says, yeah, it looks to be a good resource. I hope so. Cool. But these are just examples. My hands are being hidden. These are just examples of other individuals that, first of all, if we want to um, give back to our community by using their system, strangely enough, you're not it's not just an homage and you're not stealing, but you're actually giving credit to where credit is due if you're doing it correctly, which whether you should or not, you should always go, "Hey, I'm using this free to use system and this is where I got it from. This is the designer of it." That kind of thing. Like for example, Ben Milton's channel Questing Beast, his Knave 1.0 and 2.0, and I even think Maze Rats is an OGL and it has an SRD. Cairn, first edition, second edition is open and usable and things like that. These are just examples of like the more popular ones that I know of, and I think you guys probably know of them. And if it fits for your game, and the thing is that don't be limited by the semantics. So if the game uses strength and dex and con, and you go, I'm like so anti Dungeons and Dragons, I'm not ever going to use it. Just use different terminology, but you keep the game mechanics the same. So you never have to use hit points, but you can use friction, like in Drew's game, which I'm not going to use the word friction, but I love it because it already brings up in my head what it represents, and based on like the time period and the if you use terminology that embraces what the world is about, I really think you'll even get more traction, more immersion. For example, if your game is about the gods, the many of the gods have died and only a few are still living. Most of the gods that are alive are of like shadow and fire and pain and war, but there's only one small spark of light of hope that exists in the world. So maybe the stats for your game aren't strength, dex, con, intelligence. Maybe the stats for your game are blood, fire, iron, light, darkness, hope, or whatever. And it's like, well, how do I know how to open the door? Well, then what you could do then for your game using that fruitful void is, well, which stat do you think applies to opening the door? Probably fire, because I'm gonna violently kick the door open. That makes a lot of sense. Well, I want to pick the lock. That sounds like shadow. Um, I'm going to strike it with my hammer. That sounds like iron, right? That kind of thing. Um, because I'm long and I'm strong and I'm down to get the friction. Oh, yeah. And it says one other thing about complex systems is they have more meat to make content about. And you are correct. Although, if I want to push back against complex systems, um, there can be barriers that didn't exist before that system came about. So, an example would be if in your system you have two weapon fighting, then that implies that everyone else cannot wield two weapons. Whereas if it didn't exist in the world, then people could walk around with two weapons in their hand or without, and neither one would neither be beneficial nor detrimental. It would just be a narrative thing. Great, I fight with a long sword and a dirk. You know what I mean? A long sword and a stiletto in the other hand, or a dagger or something, and that's how my character fights. And that might just be narrative. But if you have a feature that says no, you must pick this thing to enable you to fight with two weapons, then it sends the message that other people can't do that thing unless they have it. So sometimes complex systems both tell us what we can do and also send us signals of some things that we can't do. BXD&D, uh, magic users couldn't wear armor. Now, the reasoning behind that was because you didn't want to armor up people who also had magic. But then it's like, well, what do you mean by can't wear armor? Does it mean I physically can never put it on? Or can I wear armor and just not cast spells? And it wasn't clear on that, right? Yeah, Hanon says no argument there. Complex systems also require more content to be understood. Now I said something against what you said. Now to defend what you're saying is if the game system has a simple but robust enough engine to it all one-off situations, side situations that are difficult to adjudicate become easier if the engine is easy to use. So, fantasy D20 systems, you roll a D20 and add or subtract some modifiers. So, that's the engine. So, when the characters get into a situation when we don't know what the outcome is and it's not easy to find the rule, we go, oh, grab a d20, let's find some modifiers to it, and then figure out whether you succeed or fail. And that can work for a lot of games. If a game has a really good engine, then you almost never even have to open the book. You just go, oh well, what's the rule for being holding on to a tree branch with a raging river and then being pushed downstream and then trying to swim and then grab your ally. Well, let's grab some dice or dice pool or playing cards or spend a token for your success or something. You know what I mean? It's all that put together. Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, how much do you need to chew on? Exactly. Yeah, and like Stochastic says, yeah, it's a classic system matters discussion. Yep, yep. Uh, very much so. Replace screen sharing with what? Oh, it does let me do that. Wow. Wow. Well, thank you. It does let me do that. All right. So anyway, guys, thank you very much for being part of the show. I really appreciate it. Also, thank you very much for just letting me. Let me turn this off. Allowing me to basically like verbally vomit all over the interwebs, and you guys are here to see me. Um, Also, again, uh, if you have any ideas or talking points or something like that, I didn't talk much about science fiction, which I told myself I would. Um, but yes, and along with the science fiction, you guys know I'm using prompts from the Fermi paradox of yeah, I hope your Monday part two gets off to a good start. Next week, I have some time off, and I hope to release the both the Google Doc and the laid out system so that you guys can like hold on to it and chew it apart and rip it apart and kick my ass with it. But actually, it will be something that can be used. Trying not to let perfect get in the way of just good enough, and practice what I preach. So one, and mind you, this is also me putting it out there and going, shit, I better get this done, right? Yeah, art is never done. It's just it just hits a deadline. So guys, thank you very much for being part of the show. I really appreciate it. Uh, if you or someone you like or hate and could benefit or be punished by this channel, please share it out there. Please like, share, subscribe. Hell, go over to Twitch and follow over there. Tell your grandmothers. I don't, that's some bullshit. But anyway, guys, have a great one. Your time is very valuable. Thank you very much for spending it here. I really appreciate it. But I hope in return for your expenditure that I'm able to make some change in your tabletop role playing community, world building, and game mechanic creation endeavors. Woo! Pulled that out of my ass as well. Guys, have a great one. Thank you very much. I will see thee later. I will be sending you out with a countdown timer, but rest assured, the show is not starting again. It is ending. I have to upload. Restream has a new upload intro outro system, and I haven't quite figured it out because I'm a bit of a luddite. So you guys have a great one. Great one. I will see thee later. Yeah, you impertinent. Thank you very much, and thank you also for the new brilliant members who make me look brilliant. So I appreciate that too because I can look pretty dumb. All right, guys, have a great one. I'll see you later. Peace and tranquility.